Welcome to another Narc Survivor live video. In this one, talking about how you can beat the narcissist for real. Now, this is the best way to beat them. And funny enough, it's also the easiest way. There's probably no easier way to do it other than this. Because many of you, you're getting in the mud with them, you're getting in the ring, you're doing everything you possibly can to try and overpower them. And there's no reason for you to do that. You just need to relax. You just need to not worry so much and just let everything be smooth. Just be non-reactive, unemotional, unresponsive. Don't be worrying too much. Don't let yourself have all of this anxiety, because that's what they want. That's what they need from you. And the reason why is because they are in denial. They live in a false reality. They are delusional. And this is why they have to put in so much work to devalue you, to target your self-esteem, and to bring in other people, triangulate you with them, play all of these mind tricks, these psychological games, smear your name, bring in so many people, turn them all against you. This is why they have to do all of these things. They have to lie about you, spread rumors, a smear campaign, rewrite the past. They have to do all of this. And it's all just to convince themselves, to calm themselves down, because they've done so many things to you and so many things to people before you. And it's caused them so much shame, which they do not want to reflect on. Despite that, they're still shame-based people. And they're just doing everything they can to not reflect on it, because they can't deal with it. It's too painful. It just destroys them. So they do anything they can to try and distract themselves so that they don't have to deal with these painful emotions. And that's why they just deflect it onto you. They try to make you feel bad about it. They shift the blame onto you. They're trying to make you feel like it's your fault. They just blame you for everything, because they've got to do all of the work. They've got to do everything to put it onto you, to make you feel like everything that went wrong is your fault. They have to do all of the work to convince you of that, to get you on the same wavelength, to get you on the same frequency. And this is why they have the narcissistic stare, or the romance, as I've seen mentioned on the behavior panel. This is why they do that, because they're looking at you. They have this cognitive, they have high cognitive empathy to read into your emotions and to see what you're thinking about them, because they need you to think of them in a certain way and to validate them, because they're delusional. They live in a false reality. They're pathological liars. They lie about everything. Now that's why they put in all of the work to get you to think the way that they do. That's why that's so important to them. To keep them in this delusion, to keep them in this false reality, to where they can then see themselves as not doing anything wrong. They can then see themselves as perfect. That's why they have to do that. Please give the video a thumbs up if you find it helpful so far. Thank you. But yeah, that's why they have to do it. That's why your perception of them is so important to them. That's where they've got to have all of their enablers, all of their flying monkeys. And you end up getting in the wrestling ring with them. You get pulled into their mud. And honestly, that's the wrong thing to do. They have to do that for you. They have to convince everyone of their false narrative. That's their job to do that. But as for you, you don't have to do anything. If you know that you haven't done anything wrong, what do you need to prove to them for? They're not going to listen anyway. They want to remain in denial. All you have to do is just sit back and not worry about anything. If you know that everything you've done is right and is true, then what do you have to worry about? You should have a clear conscience. If you know that you did your best for them, if you know that you weren't the problem in that relationship, you weren't the abuser, then what do you have to worry about? Why do you need to worry about what they think of you? Or what all of these enablers and flying monkeys think of you? And the more that you get into their wrestling ring, the more that you try and get into the mud with them, it's just not going to work. As George Bernard Shaw has been one of his quotes, never wrestle with a pig. You will get dirty, and besides, the pig likes it. Because that's their narcissistic supply. This is what happens when people are pathological liars, when they've been lying their entire lives, sweeping things under the rug, covering things up. They've got to have supply. They've got to have their victim on the same wavelength. They've got to have their victim agreeing with them. Because otherwise that brings up so much shame. It's like, as an example, a narcissist could hit you in the face. And of course, every time they see you, then they have to look at that bruise. And if you know that they did that to you, every time they see you, it's going to bring up shame. It's going to make them feel horrible, worthless. So what they have to do is distort your reality. They have to gaslight you. Because then by doing that, it enables them to continue gaslighting themselves so that they can continue in this false reality. And then when they see the bruise that they've caused on you, it makes them feel better. It makes them feel more powerful. Because maybe they just put the blame onto you. They've shamed you for it. As though you're weak. You couldn't defend yourself. Or maybe they just lie about it. They make up some excuse. They say that you're so clumsy that you just somehow did it to yourself. So you see how they reverse everything. But you never get any sense out of them. You never get any truth. They always have to lie. They always have to be fake. So that they can sustain this false reality, this false character. Because they cannot accept themselves. They do not want anything to do with themselves. And that's why if they can't convince you, if they can't get you on that same wavelength, then they will just get rid of you. They will ghost you. They will give you the silent treatment. They will smear your name. They will discredit you. They will target you. They'll have people coming after you. And they will brainwash as many people as they can to make everyone think that it's you. And their brainwashing can be very powerful. Because remember, they gaslight themselves. They actually believe it. Many of them believe it. Many of them aren't self-aware. So in many situations, there could be so many people involved. And they're all bullying and intimidating the real victim. Some of them may know that the victim is the real victim. Others may just not care. They may be envious of you, just like the narcissist is. But this is how this happens. And sometimes it can happen on such a scale. And everyone gets pulled into it. And they're all dependent on this one person, the scapegoat, for validation for their narcissistic supply. So that they can just feel normal. Like there isn't anything wrong with them. Like they're not horrible people. Because no one wants to feel that way. There is no one who wants to feel like a bad person. That causes people depression. Unless, in the case of a narcissist, they can get a sense of power from it. It's feeling as though they have overpowered you, they've conquered you, because you're a bad person. And I know it sounds childish and immature, but this is how they think because they haven't arrested emotional development. Many of them, they're stuck at the emotional development of a 2 or 3 year old child. Some of them it may be a bit older. But either way, you get the idea. They're children in adult bodies. They're living in fantasy. They haven't learned affective empathy. So it's just all about them. It's all about what they want from you. It's all about convincing everyone, convincing you. Pulling everyone into this false reality. But there's always something that they all have in common. Do you ever notice how they're all miserable? They're all angry. They're all very envious and jealous. They're all very insecure. And you're not even doing anything to them. You're not even deliberately doing anything to trigger or irritate them. And they have to do all of these things to you to try and make you unhappy, to destabilize you. Now, why is it that you don't have to do anything to destabilize them? All you have to do is hold on to the truth. And you don't even have to speak about it. Well, as for them, they have to do all of these things to try to destabilize you. Why is it that you have peace of mind? Why is it that you have a clear conscience? How can that be possible? Of course, it can be possible because you didn't really do anything wrong. And anything that you did do wrong, it was to protect yourself, to defend yourself. It may have been reactive abuse, which I'm not justifying. But of course, it's understandable when you're dealing with an abusive, raging narcissist. So for you, you may have done what you had to do, what you had no other choice but to do. Well, as for them, they didn't have to treat you that way. They didn't have to abuse you, but they chose to. If this is resonating with you, please give it a thumbs up. Let's get this message out there so that other survivors of narcissistic abuse will see it as well. I'm giving it to you right here. How to beat the narcissist for real. You don't have to go above and beyond. You don't have to go out of your way to beat them. You don't have to do any of that. All you got to do is just sit back and not worry about it. If you know that they're a bad person, then good riddance. Let the trash take itself out. If you give them enough rope, they will hang themselves. It's just that many of you feel the need to interrupt, to intervene, or to convince them of your truth, to get in the ring with them, to get in the mud. You feel the need to do that because you've been gaslighted. You've been gaslighted for such a long time. You need to hold on to the truth. Remember, this is their goal, to convince you so that they can continue to exist in this false reality. The problem is, even if, hypothetically speaking, they did get you, they did manage to brainwash you. It wouldn't stop there, because there's always going to be someone else. There's always going to be someone else who thinks that what they're doing is wrong, and then they got to brainwash that person as well. And this is how it always starts off, because it's always that person who's not going to believe in their lies, who's not going to believe in the mask. That's the source of supply. And that's why they have to wear a mask for that person. They have to manipulate them, because that's the one they really want. That's the challenge. That's a real, genuine, authentic person. And yet they do the same thing every time. They have to break that person down. Because of course they want to rob you of your qualities, of your innocence, your authenticity, everything that they don't have, because they're pathological liars. They're evil, they're wicked and immoral. They're horrible people. And this is why they have to target people just like us. People who are innocent, naive, unaware. This is why they have to target us. And they have to wear a mask when they first get involved with that. They have to manipulate us. They have to love bomb us. They have to make us think that they're the same as us, when they're not. They're only looking to manipulate and deceive, to exploit you. And that's when they then turn against you. They devalue you. They put you down. They sabotage you. And then they bring in all of these other people to validate them, to make them feel like they haven't done anything wrong, to deflect the shame, to avoid the consequences for their actions. And then they just go on to the next person and do the exact same thing again. This is what they do every time. And this is why nothing ever changes. No matter how old they get, they never do the inner work. They remain toxic and dysfunctional. And in fact, the older they get, the more bitter and resentful they become for that reason. Well, as for us, no matter what was done to us, no matter how much they try to sabotage us, we always just do whatever we can to get back on our feet on our own. We do all of the work by ourselves. And we don't expect anything from them, because we know they're narcissists. They're not going to do anything for us. And we accept that. We know that if we're dealing with a narcissist, everything that was done to us, everything that was lost, it's never going to come back. They're never going to resolve that for us, because they're the narcissist and we are the victim. So what we lost is not going to be returned. Well, as for them, they didn't lose anything. We gave everything we had to them, because that's the dynamic. They're the narcissist, we are the victim. So we lose, they gain. And we don't expect anything from them afterwards. They're the ones who are very entitled. We're the ones who are just trying to move on. We're trying to move on in peace. Because the victim, the real victim, just wants to be left alone. We don't want to have to deal with someone else's trauma, someone else's emotional baggage, just because they can't accept reality, just because they don't want anything to do with themselves. We realize that that's not our problem. It's not our fault if they don't want to come to the light, if they don't want to accept the truth about themselves. It's not our fault if they don't want to do that. So this is how you beat the narcissist. You remain stoic. You grey rock. You be non-reactive, unemotional. That's what you have to do. And they're going to push and provoke you for a reaction, because they need that from you. They will do anything to try and get you to react. And they can do some crazy things, so you do need to be careful. Some of them, they will cheat on you, they will steal from you, they will physically attack you. Some narcissists may even try to murder you, just to get that response, just to try and put you on the same wavelength, because they need it so bad. They need that from you. They need that validation, that reassurance. They need to know that nothing's wrong with them, that they're okay, despite all of the crazy things that they have done to you. This is what happens to them. And this is why people who do these types of things, they never get away with it. Clinical studies have shown that bullies are at a 10 to 25 times risk of developing a psychiatric condition more than their own victims, along with anxiety disorders and depression, relationship issues, work issues, just so many things. Because all of these things that they're doing, it's making them mentally ill, and sometimes physically ill as well. It's driving them up the wall. It's driving them insane. The last thing they want is to be stuck in their own minds. They want to project these emotions onto you. They want you to feel it for them, because it's eating away at them. And especially since they have to be in denial. They don't want to correct it. They don't want to make amends. So now this is just their life. Now they're just driving themselves crazy. And of course, if you're interacting with them, it will drive you crazy too. Crazy will make you crazy, because that's what they are. They are crazy. They are insane. They've completely lost the plot. And the more supply that they have, the more insane they get. It just makes them even more crazy, because they do all of these things to people. And then they're pathological liars. They deny it. They may have started off with just one lie, with a source of supply. But then time goes by, and then that one lie turns into 10 lies. Dozens of lies, hundreds of lies. And it's all just built on a house of cards. There's no foundation or structure. So all you got to do is just poke at it, and it all falls apart. Just point out something that they've done. Even if it's one small thing. It could be something that's not even a big deal. And they will lose it. Because if they accept one thing that they've done wrong, it could open the floodgates to everything else. So they've got to be perfect. You have to think of them as flawless, as though there's nothing wrong with them, as though they're not even human. That's how you've got to see them, because they're that insecure. That's how bad it is for them. And I know I'm going back and forth, one room to the next, is because it's almost like a tennis game and I'm the ball. It's like sometimes I get people waiting outside the door talking, and there's all the horns going off up by the window. So I'm just trying to get some peace so that I can deliver this message to you effectively. I also got banging from the ceiling too. But yeah, this is what it's like. They have to do everything to dumb you down, to make it so that you can't even think clearly. Because you still got it in your mind. You got the memories, you know what they're like. You know what type of people they are. You know how bad they are. And that information that you have in your brain, even when you don't express it with words, they're constantly scanning the environment for threats. They can sense it in your body language, your facial expressions, your tone of voice. They know that you're onto them. They know that they're not a good person. They know that you remember that they did you wrong. They know that and they don't like it. You have to agree with them. You have to be on the same wavelength. That's the only way that they can feel comfortable. They have to change your perception of them. And of course, in order for them to do that, they have to change your perception of yourself. You have to see yourself differently. They have to distort your reality, get you to doubt your own memory, perception, and sanity. Because they're living in a fake world. They're in an alternate reality. And for those of you who are new here, I have done 2 playlists. One playlist is on the narcissist fantasy world, and the other playlist is the narcissist alternate realities and fake worlds. So if you're new to my channel, those are definitely 2 playlists that you should check out, because I've been talking about this for so many years. And those are some of my earliest videos. And even today, they're still true. These people are completely delusional. That's why they have to do all of the things that they do. That's why they have to use all of these psychological tricks. They can't just be open, direct, and honest. And it gets to a point where you just can't even have a conversation with them. Many of you may have tried already, just sitting down one-on-one and just trying to have a normal conversation with them. Just trying to say, right, this is what happened to you. These are the facts. And you could bring as much evidence as you want. You could bring CCTV, surveillance, text messages, emails, all sorts of evidence. You could bring it all to the table. Sit them down, show it to them. They'll just spin it around in circles. They'll spin your head around in circles. They'll give you a headache because they cannot accept reality. They cannot accept the state of things as they actually are. They just can't do it. And then it may affect you. You may start to think that you're losing your mind in some cases, as it happened to me sometimes. And then we find these communities, we realize that they have all of these tactics. There's all of these things that they do, such as denial, projection, blame shifting, gaslighting, deflection, the double bind. They use all of these tactics. And even aside from that, just look at them. Just look at how over emotional they are. Their reactions are so exaggerated. The narcissistic rage. It's just crazy how they react. And it's like, even if someone thought that you just had a different perception, you remember things differently, why would they need to react like that? Why would they be so angry? Why couldn't they just sit you down and just try to explain to you? They can't do it. Because they're angry that you are the keeper of the truth. You held on to the truth. You held on to reality. They had to let go of it. They had to rely on their manipulation. That's the only way that they could get by. And this is why it just gets to a point where they do so many things and they lie about everything. You just can't even have a conversation with them. Because they don't want anything to do with themselves. And unfortunately, you have all of these memories, you know all of these things about them, you know exactly what they're like. And many of you may be afraid to even be anywhere near them, because you already know everything that they've done to you. I mean, it's so predictable. They're just going to say that that's what you're like. That's what you did. Because that's what they do. They project and deflect. They disown the parts of themselves that they do not like and assign them to you so that they can continue in their false reality and with their false narrative while painting you as the perpetrator. And this is what they do every time. Even to this day, narcissists are still using these same tactics, despite all of this information. Because the legal system, the courts, they still haven't caught up with this. So narcissists are still able to get by with the same tactics. And then also you have to consider that many police officers, many lawyers, judges, they're narcissists as well. Not all of them, of course, but many of them are. But yeah, if you want to be a narcissist, you don't have to get in the ring with them. You don't have to prove anything to them. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to get them to see your side of things. You don't need their validation. You don't need them to think anything. Let them think what they want, because they're not going to be able to do that on their own. It's impossible. They are extremely insecure, which means that even if they do have another source of supply, and all of these enablers and flying monkeys, they still haven't got the one thing that they need most, which is your validation. So they're still not going to be happy. They're still not going to be comfortable, because they know that someone out there still knows the truth. And not just anyone, but you, the person that they did these things to. They need you to see them differently. They need you to see them in a positive light. They just can't rest until you do. And even when you do, then they just go on with the next person. They do the same thing again, and maybe they can't manipulate that person as well. So they end up with a string of people like this, and they have to get these people into a position where they're no longer a threat to them, or where they're so messed up in the mind that they just can't even think straight, or they haven't got the energy, the strength to fight. That's what they have to do. That's the only way that they can feel comfortable now. They've got to get you on the same wavelength as them. They've got to get you to agree with them. That's the only way that they can do it. Because they're driving themselves insane in their minds without that supply, without that external validation. And even though they may get supply elsewhere, they're still never at rest. They still have so much anxiety, so much stress. And that's why it's just such a stressful experience to have to deal with them. Because everything they display to you at the beginning is just all fake. It's all nonsense. That's not really them. They're horrible people. They manipulate and exploit people. This is what they do. And they don't even feel bad about it. They don't even feel the need to correct it. Not that they could anyway, because they can't even help themselves. They can't accept reality. They can't do the inner work. It's just too painful for them to accept that they have been lying to themselves their entire lives. It's too painful for them to accept that. So they just continue to lie. They continue to cover things up. And they've got to get everyone else to agree with them, to be on their side. And if you refuse to sell your soul, if you refuse to let yourself be brainwashed, indoctrinated, then they've got to break you down. They've got to destabilize you. They've got to destroy you. And this is why I say that you do have to be very careful when you don't let them manipulate you, when you don't let them pull you onto their wavelength. They can become aggressive. They can become violent. And of course, we all know exactly what happens when they do become aggressive and violent. They will attack you physically. They will lash out at you. And if you try to defend yourself, maybe if you just put your arms in front of you to protect your face, they will just say that you hit them. They will just make it up. They will say that you attacked them and they were defending themselves. And of course, it's just their word against yours. They're master manipulators. They're very good at playing the victim. Some of them may have connections with the police as well. So, yeah, they will become violent towards you and they will blame you for it. They will get you in trouble for what they do to you. As crazy as that sounds, that's exactly what they do. They can be with a victim for months, years, decades, abusing them all of that time, the entire time, just using them, abusing them, exploiting them. The victim goes through the worst, most cruel and unjust treatment for their entire lives. And in the end, what do they get for their sacrifice, for everything that they had to go through? They get blamed, they get smeared, discredited. And if they try to heal, if they try to get back up off the floor, maybe they're crawling on their hands and knees, and they just about manage to get back on their feet, then what happens? The narcissist comes back and kicks them back down to the floor. Is that not exactly what happens? They manipulate you in the beginning, they lure you into the relationship, then all of that time they devalue you, they put you down, they abuse you. Emotionally, physically, psychologically, in every possible way that they can. They use and abuse you, they exploit you, they cheat on you, lie to you, steal from you. And then they just discard you like a piece of trash. They just leave you on the floor to die. And then when they see you, you're moving, you're crawling on the floor, struggling to get back on your feet. What do? They come back. And then they just kick you back down. They kick you back down to the ground. They sabotage you. And why do they do that? Because you're about to become a walking reminder of who they actually are. Because otherwise, if you're such a bad person, if you're so horrible, then how can things get better for you? And not only that, but to see you happy, to see you moving on, to see you being successful, it makes them feel inferior. It further destabilizes them. That's just what it does to them. Because again, they have a false character, they're living in a false reality. But for good people, people who are real, true, authentic, you're not going to be bothered if you were in a relationship with someone and Maybe after some time you see that they've moved on, things have gotten better for them. They're with someone else, they're married, they've got children, they've got a business. You're not going to feel envious about that. You're going to be happy for them. You're going to be happy that they found someone else and they moved on. They're doing well now. But it's not like that with a narcissist. They will never feel happy for you. Because deep down they know that they are the problem. They just don't want anyone or anything to remind them that they are the problem. So everything has to be controlled. Everything has to be orchestrated. Everything has to be on their terms. Everything has to be under their conditions. Everything has to go the way that they want it to be. They have to orchestrate it so that they can generate feelings of stability, security, comfort, which they cannot do otherwise. They have to control the external environment because it is hell in their minds. And of course it would be, you really think that people like that can do these types of things to people and still feel good about themselves? How could anyone feel good about themselves when they're going around abusing, exploiting people, robbing them, tricking them, misleading them, not reciprocating anything back to them, leaving them holding on, leaving them searching for answers? How can anyone like that feel good inside? How can anyone like that feel good about themselves? And they can gaslight themselves as much as they want. It's not going to make a difference. It's just going to make things worse because what you resist persists. And that is why all of us coaches and therapists, we all agree that narcissists, they're shame-based people who are doing everything they can to avoid reflecting on their shame. That's why they will deflect the shame onto you. They will shift the blame onto you. They will do whatever they have to do. They will destabilize you. They will suck the life out of you because there's no life inside of them. They're lifeless. So now in order to feel anything, they become these thrill seekers. They need an adrenaline rush, a dopamine hit. And that's how they ended up devaluing us, abusing us, exploiting us. Because then it gives them this stupid delight. It makes them feel better about themselves. That's what makes them do that. People like that who do these types of things, they're never going to be happy in a healthy relationship with a healthy person, in a functional family dynamic. They will ruin it, destroy it. They will destroy any good person that they get around. They have to. They have to destroy everything. Because that's just how their disorder functions. It thrives in dysfunction, in drama and chaos. That's the only way that they can feel comfortable. Yes, they can portray the illusion of stability, of comfort, of good health and of things going well for them. They can portray the illusion of that for a certain amount of time. But that's not even what they want. They hate that. Even if you made everything perfect for them exactly the way they want, they would find a way to ruin it. That's exactly what they do on special occasions. Christmas, birthdays, Thanksgivings. They always find a way to ruin it. Because they can't feel comfortable in healthy, functional environments. They're mentally ill. They have a personality disorder. And that's not going to get them very far. This is why they hoover us. This is why they always come back to us. This is why they can't leave us alone. Unless they can find a better, more unsuspecting victim. But even then, still a good chance they will come back. Or unless they can completely destroy us, that's the only way they can feel comfortable to then move on without any regrets. If they think that we're never going to recover, then they can safely forget about us. So this is really what they do. They leave a trail of victims, a path of destruction wherever they go. Because they're just broken, damaged people. And yet they manage to maintain such a flawless, faultless image for everyone else. And a lot of people like this in the world today. They're everywhere. People are so fake. They've caused so many problems for people. They've ruined so many people's lives. And they just pretend like they've done nothing wrong. They just pretend like there's nothing wrong with them. But this is why, you just sit with them in a room. Just for 10 minutes, just for an hour, it will drive you insane. They'll make you feel like you're losing your mind. It will make you sick. Because they're sick, they're diseased. They're mentally ill. You can never be around them and feel good about yourself or feel comfortable. Feel at peace. Because that's just what it does to them when they're in such denial. When they don't want anything to do with themselves. They just begin to rot inside, they decay. And then you get around them, it's like you contract that disease. They gaslight you, and then you have to disconnect from yourself. And this is why it's just such a horrible experience to be around them. The only way that it can feel pleasant is if they mirror you. Is if they just reflect you back to you. It just sucks you into an illusion. And sometimes it can trauma bond you. Good to see we've got 175 live viewers. I'm not sure where everyone was yesterday. I did a live video yesterday. I think I only got 1,000 views. So if you weren't there for yesterday's live video, do check it out. I'm not sure what happened with the YouTube algorithm there. YouTube should be recommending these videos. So much good information here. So much truth that I'm giving to you. The raw truth. Why does YouTube want to silence the truth? Is that what YouTube is doing? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section if you think that YouTube is silencing the truth. Because look at the views, what's happening? What happened to the views on yesterday's live video? What's happening to the views on my pre-recorded videos? Do you think YouTube is silencing the truth? Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I see we've got 164 live viewers. 46 thumbs ups. Give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful so far. I'm just giving you this raw truth. If you want to beat a narcissist, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to run endlessly on their hamster wheel. You just have to relax, just be calm. By knowing that it's them and not you. You are not the problem. You didn't do anything wrong. So what do you need to prove anything for? Why do you need to waste all of your energy trying to convince someone who's completely delusional? Someone who wants nothing to do with the truth anyway. They are the ones who have to convince you. They need supply. They need you to believe in them. They need your validation because they're fake. And the truth is like sunlight to a vampire. It's like kryptonite to them. And that's why they have to find a way to tone it down, to get you to make them feel more comfortable. It's kind of like the same thing as if maybe they argued with you, they shouted at you, they swore at you, they were really mean to you. And then afterwards they just minimize it. Or they act like it was a joke. They act like it's not a big deal because then it minimizes their responsibility. It makes them feel better about themselves. That's what they want to do. They want to minimize anything that they've done, anything bad about them, and exaggerate anything bad about you, or just make it up completely. It's the only way that they can feel comfortable. It's the only way that they can feel better about themselves. And this is why it's just such a horrible experience to be around them. Narcissists hate themselves and they are terrified of themselves. They want nothing to do with themselves. They are never going to go within. They will never accept themselves. And that's why anytime you try to bring themselves to them, you confront them, you bring up something that they have said or done, it's like life or death to them. They're in a fight for their lives. They will do anything to discredit you, to sabotage you, to bring you down. Because they see it as though it's either you or them. And their image is very important to them. They cannot live without supply. They've got to have that validation because there's nothing inside of them, nothing but a void. And I know there's a lot of noise in the background. If you're new here, there's nothing I can do about the noise. Wherever I go in the world, it follows me. Constant door slamming, cars beeping. There's a lot of people who do not want this information to get out. A lot of people are living a lie, they live in a fake life, and they don't want anyone to talk about it. They don't want anyone to know about it. They don't want anyone to know the truth. They have to keep people down. They have to silence you because they're just trying to be as comfortable as they can. And of course, if someone's speaking the truth, if someone knows the truth about them, it's just constant discomfort for them. And it always is anyway. I mean, they need a lot of attention just to keep going. And even then, many of them, they need their addictions, drugs, alcohol, gambling, shopping. They've got to spend loads of money. They have to do so many things just to distract themselves from their own minds. This is just what happens when they do such horrible things to people, and yet they remain in denial. And they blame their own victims. This is how they have to live. While for you or I, the most peaceful, healing thing we could do is to just be by ourselves, go for a walk by a lake or go hiking. climb a mountain. It's the most peaceful, healing thing that we could do, because unlike them, we haven't done anything wrong. If anything, the only thing we did wrong was try to help them. We should never be helping people like that. They don't deserve anything. They're horrible people. But that's why we have peace of mind. That's why we have a clear conscience. That's why we don't constantly need someone there to regulate our emotions, to pacify and soothe us. I mean, initially we may need some validation, we may need some closure, but that's because we've been gaslighted for such a long time. And it's good, that we're seeking that closure, that validation. We're looking for answers. We want to know what happened. Because we don't understand why people would treat us that way. But with these narcissists, they don't even want a conversation about anything. Even when it's things that they're blaming you for. They're not looking for answers. They're not looking for closure. Because they know they're not the victims. Deep down they know that. They know that there's something wrong with them. So what do they need answers for? But yeah, initially, of course, there's nothing wrong with seeking closure, looking for answers. That's the right thing to do. That's what they don't do. They don't want to know the truth. Because the truth is against them. But that's the real test of a person's character. If the truth is against you and you still accept it and try to do better. And in some ways, that's what we have to do, because it's like, what were we doing with them? What were we doing around them? And of course, I understand many of us, we were manipulated, we were tricked, we were deceived. I mean, if we had known what we were dealing with, and this is how it works for them, they play on this. If we knew at the beginning what type of person this is and what they were about to do with us, do you think we would have wanted anything to do with them? Of course not. We wouldn't have wanted anything to do with them if we knew what they were going to do. And so, whatever they think they are, whatever they think they're doing, it just disproves it. Because it's like, yes, okay, you can be that person in the moment or for a certain amount of time, but then what happened afterwards? You're not that person anymore. And of course, sometimes they like to use that on us because they're disconnected from their own behaviors. It's like they do all of these things to you, they devalue you, they sabotage you, and then they just minimize it, or they say that you deserved it, or they just deny it. They justify it in some way. Every abuser has an excuse. They've always got something to say about it, or something to say about you, rather. And I know the noise is quite excessive. I mean, people are really going crazy around you today. But this is what they have to do. I cannot stress how much discomfort these narcissists experience from seeing you comfortable, from seeing you at peace, from seeing you relaxed. Because then it just reminds them how disordered, how mentally ill they are. And they do not want to be reminded of that. That's why they do these things to you. That's why they try to destabilize you. That's why they break you down. That's why they try and mess your mind up. Because your mind holds the truth. I mean, if they really thought that something was wrong with you, Like many of them like to switch it around and they call you the narcissist. If they really thought that, then why do they destabilize you? Why do they use all of these psychological mind tricks? Why do they smear you, gang stalk you, harass you? If you're the crazy one, why do they need to intervene? If something is bad, if it's sick, if there's something wrong with it, it's not going to thrive. How could it thrive? Unless it is healthy. And that's why they have to intervene with you. And this is why I'm saying that for you to be a narcissist for real, you don't have to do anything. Because if you really believe that they are sick, or something is wrong with them, that they are narcissists, why do you need to do anything at all? Just let it play out. Let their disorder do what it does best. If they're mentally ill, then how can they produce anything healthy? They can't. They can't produce long-term success. But remember, they are master manipulators. They're orchestrators, they're illusionists. They've been doing this their entire lives. It's what they have to do in order to get by. So they're very good at doing that. Remember, that's what they did to you. They manipulated you in the beginning. But it never lasts. It didn't last with you. Eventually you began to figure things out. You realized they're not the person they said they were. You realize that they're very unhealthy. So, yeah, their sickness, their mental issues, it creates a lot of problems for them and everyone around them. They have to target someone, they have to scapegoat someone. They've got to victimize people. It's the only way that they can get by. That's how they thrive. But even then, them thriving, it just makes them even more ill. If they didn't have supply, if they didn't thrive, then maybe things could get better for them. Because they're sick. So that disease, it needs to be killed. Which means it can't have any nourishment. Their sickness, their illness, their disease, it needs like no sunlight. Like imagine if it's a seed, it needs no sunlight, no water, no soil, no nourishment, nothing to feed it, nothing to let it flourish and grow so that it dies out. That's what it needs in order for them to then actually thrive for real. But for their illness, their disorder to thrive, it needs attention, validation, it needs supply. It needs to feel like it exists. It needs to feel like it's real. Well, as for us, in order for us to heal from the trauma, initially, yes, it can also help us to be by ourselves. But then getting the validation from these communities as well, that helps too. Because of course, we need to know that we were not wrong. That we are good people. And it's not just that we're either good or bad. But really think back, I mean, do you remember everything that you did for them? All of your attempts to try and make them happy? Many of you, you sacrificed your lives for them. And what did they do for you? They abused you, they ruined you, and they took no accountability and blamed you for everything. So it's not just good or bad, but overall, you were good to them. You did everything you could for them. You did everything you could until you couldn't do any more. And they did everything they could to destroy you. That's the difference. We were trying to build, and what were they were trying to do? They were trying to destroy. And I mean, with the narcissist, it really is just, it's black and white, because they have a black and white mentality. So you get involved with them, and everything is just black and white. You're trying to build, they're trying to destroy. And even when we come onto these communities, we're looking for answers. It's like we're still trying to build something, and they're still trying to destroy us. So we're just trying to protect ourselves. And it's because they have this black and white mentality, so you get involved with them, and they just become these evil people. But you got to watch that you don't fall into that kind of behavior. Do not let yourself become like them. Do not let that happen to you. Honestly, I think that that's what many of them want to do. They want to demoralize you. They want to make you just like them. And that's why, to beat them, you've got to hold on to your reality. Hold on to the truth. Be non-reactive, unresponsive. Observe, don't absorb. Respond, don't react. Do not give them your emotional reactions. You don't have to tell them what you think. You don't have to tell them what your truth is. You don't need to tell them anything, but just hold on to it yourself. And don't feed into their reality. Don't validate them. They will seek your approval. They will try to put you onto the same wavelength, but you don't need to get involved in that. Just stay distant, stay silent. Let them try to prove to you. Let them try to convince you, because they are the ones who need your validation. They need you to tell them that they're a good person. But as for us, we're not so much looking for them to tell us that we're good people. We may just want to know why they did what they did to us. But of course, you're not going to get that from them, because they're mentally ill. And this is one of the key ways, the key indicators that you know exactly what you're dealing with. Because this is one of the main characteristics of a narcissist. It's that they do all of these things to you, and then they don't give you any closure. Or they just deny it, or they blame you. These are the key characteristics of a narcissist. Key indicators. They're always in denial about the things that they have done. They're gaslighting themselves. And honestly, I think the process in their minds is that there's like a split-second window where they start to feel the shame, they feel inadequate, they feel like a bad person. And then also they fear the consequences, they fear what could happen to them. It's like they really fear for their lives, for their fake life. And then they just think that if they gaslight themselves, if they lie to themselves, then it's all just going to go away. Then they can just hide it, they can hide the truth. And it's also a way to suppress the shame and also to convince you. So this is the process in their minds. This is what they have to do. And yeah, as I said, this is it's a key indicator of a narcissist. They all do this. They're all in denial. Just like all of these criminals that you see in prison. They never admit to it. They never admit to their crimes. Most of them are in denial. And of course, those that are more sociopathic or especially psychopathic, they may deny it, but they're fully aware of what they've done wrong. They're not gaslighting themselves. They're still in reality, but they don't really feel anything. They're still just empty, miserable people. When as for narcissists, they are actually in denial. They're gaslighting themselves. At some level, deep down, they know that they're bad people. They know what they've done wrong. But they cover it up. They push it down. They just try not to ever think about it, to ever reflect on it. This is why they're so easily triggered. You can easily set them off. It's no laughing matter for a narcissist when you confront them. It makes them lose their minds. Because they do not accept themselves. They do not want anything to do with themselves. Because they know that they're bad people. They know that they're horrible. But yeah, I think I've given enough information on how you can beat a narcissist for real. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat and any questions. I will read them out and respond to them. Give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful so far. And again, I apologize for all of the noise in this video. Honestly, I fear sometimes, I wonder, when is someone going to try and just like break the door down and just come in and just tell me, no, stop telling people everything. Stop telling people the truth. Who knows, maybe one day it could happen. Natasha says, as long as you know your own truth, it doesn't matter what they say or do. Yeah, I mean, truth, sometimes it could be subjective. But, there are the cold, hard facts. And that's what reality is. And anything outside of that, you're not going to feel good. It's not going to be a positive experience for them, being disconnected from reality. And this is why when you look at them, they're miserable. They don't look happy at all. Many of them are depressed, and I was depressed myself. I was even suicidal at one point because even I was in denial. I just didn't want to accept all of the things that had happened to me. And I'm sure this has been the same for many of you. How did you feel before you accepted the truth? Before you practiced radical acceptance of the state of how things actually are? How did you feel before that? Because I remember for myself, it was a miserable experience. Until finally I accepted the truth. And it was like I saw the light. And I had my spiritual awakening. And from that point on, I just felt so happy, so at peace. Like a huge weight off my shoulders. I just let everything go. I felt so good after that. It's like so much pressure just lifted off of me. And it's because I came into the truth. I accepted reality as it actually is. Before that, I was very anxious and I had a lot of stress, depression, even a lot of anger as well. This is because we're in resistance to it. We've been taught to keep a code of silence. But when you just accept it, it feels so much better. And this is why for them they're so miserable, they're so angry, because their entire lives they've been lying to themselves. And of course, with them being the perpetrators, the abusers, it's even worse. Because this is what it's all about. I mean, truth, acceptance. That's what our healing is. It's accepting everything, and then we can return to love. But you've got to accept it first. You've got to accept who you are and what you are dealing with. And you will know when you have accepted the real truth, because it feels good. And not only does it feel good, but you don't feel the need to prove it to anyone. You no longer need people's validation. But this is how it is for them. They need your validation, they need your reassurance. They've got to get you on the same wavelength, because deep down they know that they are liars. They're very insecure about it. And it doesn't feel good for them. I mean, of course, when all you've got is lies, false truths, how can that feel good? Amanda Shirley says, what if you said to them, you need to go within and heal yourself, you coward? If you say that to a narcissist, someone with full-blown NPD, it will cause a narcissistic injury and they will rage. They will just project it back at you and they will say that you need to go within. Well, they will call you a coward. They will just deflect it back. They're not going to accept anything about themselves. Steady Pace says, Carol, we can catch some narc fleas. They say reactive abuse is a big example. I mean, at this point, I think about that and it's like, we can catch them narc fleas. We can. Like, we can engage in reactive abuse as though we should be blamed, and not to justify abuse, of course, but you just got to think about it like this. I mean, if you've got an out of control tiger coming at you and it's about to rip you apart, I mean, even myself, I'm a vegan. What are you supposed to do? Just sit there and let it kill you? What else can you do? It's like coming at you, about to destroy you. And yet when we try to protect ourselves, defend ourselves, stop ourselves from potentially being killed, murdered, and then the term going around in the community is narcissistic fleas, reactive abuse. That's what it means when you try to protect yourself from being destroyed. It's funny when you think about it. I mean, not to dismiss those terms. I appreciate the terms and I respect whoever came up with them. But when you think about it, it's just typical of real victims, of true empaths. Of course, when we act out, when we lash out at them after everything that's been done to us, that we say, oh, we've got narcissistic fleas, we're engaging in reactive abuse, and they could completely ruin your life. They could just destroy everything about you. They'll never think that they've got narcissistic fleas or that they engaged in any sort of abuse, even though that they're the perpetrators. It's a huge double standard when you think about it. But I do think that for us personally, it can be helpful to look at it that way. I mean, yes, in a way, we are being a bit more narcissistic, a bit more selfish, but it's like, what are you supposed to do? If someone is attacking you, if they're trying to kill you, do you just sit back and just let them destroy you? Of course not. So if it's narcissistic, just to stay alive, I mean, but that's how they want to make you think as well. Just you trying to protect yourself, just you trying to survive. That's enough for them to turn around and call you a psychopath. It's like you got to lay down, you have to sacrifice your life for them. This is what narcissists are like. If any of you have the volume up, or if you've got earphones in, you must be wondering what is all the noise in the background. You can probably hear all the doors slamming, cars beeping. There's like dog whistles going off every few minutes as well. And all the sound gets into the room. It's just how it is. I do my best to remain calm and composed, even with all of this going on. I mean, normally, whenever I'm in the room, wherever I go, whether I'm in the room or I leave the room or go outside, I always have my earphones in, because there's just so much noise and it just bothers me everywhere. It's a very unstable environment, and of course, myself at this point in my healing journey, after all of the inner work that I've done, I feel like I'm relatively healthy, and anything harmful, anything toxic or dysfunctional, it's very distasteful for me. I don't like it. Of course, toxic, abusive people, they like that kind of stuff, but it's not for me. Aubrey says, nice haircut. Yes, I had it cut shorter yesterday. But I am thinking about maybe cutting it shorter even more. At the moment, I got a 2 on the top. I don't know if I'll go for a 1 or even a 0.5 on top. What do you think about that? Let me know. I'm not sure if I've ever had it that short before. Hazel Oldham says not suicidal, but definitely had suicidal ideation. Now, of course, I do have a legal duty and responsibility as a life coach to refer anyone who is experiencing suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts to the correct agency, the correct authorities, such as a Samaritan service in your local area. So of course I have a duty to say that, but then again, of course, it's up to you whether or not you decide to contact an agency for that specific purpose, or if you continue to take my advice or book a coaching session with me. But yeah, I myself, I tried to take my own life on 2 occasions, and once was in 2013, and then the other time was in 2017. And yeah, I was really going through it. The first time in 2013, I think that was more to do with I had a lot of alcohol and drugs. I felt like I had no support, no one was there for me. The second time in 2017, it was because the relationship I was in, I was with a narcissist, and one day she just broke up with me for no reason at all after 4 years. And until that point, my entire life revolved around her. I made her my world. And then I felt like I have no purpose in life. Like, what have I got to live for if I haven't got her anymore? And that's often how it feels when we're dealing with narcissists, because they make us make them our entire world. They make our life revolve around them. And again, that's how you know who you're dealing with, because who else would do that? It's only a narcissist. And again, I apologize for the noise. I know the horns are going crazy outside. There was quite a lot of noise coming from that way, so I moved into this room. But as you probably noticed from my live videos, I mean, it's like this every country I go to. There's always so much chaos. And right now, I mean, my head is really dizzy. So I think we should bring this video to an end now. My head is absolutely spinning. I think it's because of all the noises in all sorts of directions and all happening at the same time. It just spins my head around in a circle. But that's just what they have to do sometimes. They have to rely on sounds. But don't worry about me. I mean, I'm just going to lay down on my bed for a bit, put my earphones in, and my stability will soon return. But yeah, when they do these kind of things to you, when they destabilize you, they're just trying to offload. They want to make you think that you're crazy. But really what they're doing is, it's just kind of like they've, what's the name of that ride at the fairground? What is it, the merry-go-round? Or the roundabout at the park? You know, those types of rides. It's like they put you on there, and they're just spinning around, and when you get off the ride, you feel so dizzy, so disoriented. Because of course, I mean, you know, you've gone through something. But remember, narcissists, they have this denial, the selective amnesia, so they just ignore that, they just forget about it and focus on your reaction. Just they'll focus on whatever serves them, whatever makes them feel better about themselves. They'll tell themselves a story, they'll just make it up in their minds, and they'll just provoke you to get the type of reaction that they need to sustain themselves. This is just what they have to do to continue in their denial, to continue living in a false reality. It's really sad, it's really pathetic, but it's what they have to do. Lynn Johnson says, is there even help for these people? I mean, that's just it. The help for them is within themselves. Our minds, our bodies are designed to heal and recover. It's just that they don't want anything to do with themselves. They don't want to accept accountability. They don't want to accept who they actually are. They run away from that. And that's why they can't heal. If they could go within, if they could accept themselves, then they would begin to heal. And this is why they need so much outside of themselves. Many of them, they need sources of supply. They need all of the money, all of the validation, attention, all of the drugs and alcohol. They need all of that just to numb themselves, just to disconnect from themselves. And that's what prevents them from healing. It just continues to make them even more miserable. Whitlaw says, reality is your perception. Change your mind, change reality. I respectfully disagree with that because, initially, if you reframe things, that can be helpful. Which I think that's what you're explaining there is to reframe what happened. That can help initially, because of course, I mean, you've been through this battlefield with the narcissist, and it's very traumatic. So initially, you may need that. You may need to reframe it. But if we're talking about sustaining things long term, sustaining your happiness, your peace, then you just got to accept the raw truth, radical acceptance. That's what gets you through. Initially, yes, reframing things can help, But then gradually you have to begin to accept the raw truth. Unfortunately, this is what a lot of people don't want to do. And that's what keeps them stuck. You have to accept the truth about them and even the truth about yourself. You have to accept even your own faults, your own shortcomings. We have to do it. Just radical acceptance. It may be painful at first, but then gradually things will get a lot better. A lot better than they ever would have been if we had continued to reframe what happened. And I'm living proof of that, because whenever I'm on my own, whenever I'm by myself, away from all of the chaos, all of the nonsense, I feel so much better inside. I feel so much peace, so much happiness. And I don't feel like I need anything. But of course, when I'm around a lot of people, all of my energy is directed to them. And it just depletes me. Then it makes me feel miserable. It makes me feel stressed. But then that's what they like to do with you as well. I mean, they like to blame you for everything, stress you out, just do everything they possibly can to make you feel unhappy. And because they're so delusional, they're so disconnected from themselves, then they're asking you, are you okay? How do you feel? Are you happy? And it's like, how are you supposed to be happy with them in your presence and with all of the things that they're doing and orchestrating with you? It's like they're that delusional, they're that disconnected from themselves. It's like you're just meant to pretend to be happy as though nothing is going on. And maybe because that's exactly what they do. They just pretend like nothing's wrong with them, everything's fine. Meanwhile, they have a mental illness. They can't accept themselves. But I just can't live that way. And clearly, many of you can't live that way. You can't live in denial. You're not happy being in denial with them. That's why you had to look for answers. That's why you found this video. This is why I'm just all about the raw truth. The state of things as they actually are, rather than how we want them to be. And I gave you the raw truth in my videos. In all of my videos, especially my recent videos. Because that's what will bring you peace. And especially when you see things from a higher perspective. When you start to see things, if you imagine in your mind that you're observing things almost like from a different planet, from a different solar system or a different dimension, then you get to feel a sense of enlightenment. Maybe not pure enlightenment like a Buddha, but that's really the mentality. It's kind of like it's like observing and not absorbing from a healed state of mind, not identifying with it, and not identifying with this avatar, because this is just a vessel. This is just flesh and bone. It's just a body. And not that it isn't a wonderful body. It is. It can do a lot of things, but it's only temporary. But that could be a big part of it for us as well. I mean, along our healing. It's the ego that really gets in the way, because they target our ego, our sense of importance. And yes, of course, while we do need the ego, that's what helps us to survive. If we just had no ego, then we just let people do whatever they want with us. But then also it's good to have that connection to the soul. And while there may not be any scientific evidence of the soul at the moment, I do believe that it is important to have faith in that. Because when everything else goes, I mean, when they've completely just broken you down and destroyed any sense of self that you once had, any sense of your ego, that one thing that keeps you going, that one thing that gets you through it, is your soul. Your soul is that one thing that gets you through. It's kind of like the inner layer of it all. You've got the ego on the surface. Once they break through that, they may think, oh, it's all done for you. But you still got that soul. And that soul is what gets you through it. And of course, I know I'm just kind of just talking about this, and it's like there's nothing really practical about it. But I have tried various techniques to better connect to my soul and to my higher self, and it has been very effective for me in the past. But the location where I am right now, it's not really the place for it, for me to engage in these practices, so I haven't been doing so much of it recently. But as many of you may know, a few years ago I started a channel called Spiritual Secrets, which is still available here on YouTube. Still got all of my videos on there. This isn't really the place for anything spiritual where I am at the moment. But who knows, maybe when I go back to the UK, I will start engaging more in spiritual practices. I tried to continue with that when I was more on this side of the world, but it just didn't work out. It just seemed as though there wasn't a place for it here. Wasn't really a place for it in the UK either, but I still managed to do it. So I will be engaging in more spiritual practices in time and sharing it with you, because I believe that it is an important part of our healing. And not just things like ayahuasca. But I haven't even tried that myself, but I've heard good things about it. Although there is a risk to that as well. I don't know if that's anything that I will ever try. But yeah. How to beat a narcissist. This is it. This is all you have to do. Be non-reactive. Be unemotional. Don't get in the wrestling ring with them. You stay in reality. You hold on to the truth. And you recognize that they need your approval. They need your validation. They need you to be in agreement, to be in accordance with them. They need you to be on their wavelength, otherwise they can't feel comfortable. Because they're fake, they're delusional. And when you realize that, you realize everything. All right. So I hope you found this video helpful. Give it a thumbs up down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below. Subscribe and click all notifications so that you will be notified when I go live again. Donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. You can donate to my PayPal. It is paypal.me/Narc Survivor. For one-on-ones, just go to my website. It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. And follow me on Instagram. I'm posting every day content from my trip last year to Japan. Looking forward to share all of that with you. I've already posted so much already. Follow me on Instagram. It is Narc Survivor YouTube. Alright, I'm going to go and lay down and put my earphones in. Take some time to relax. Hopefully Nala will come and join me. And we can relax together. Alright. Get some rest. And watch my other videos as well. Stay educated, stay aware. And I will talk to you soon.